What is called B'nai Nevi'im. So let us hope and pray that I'm worthy of being a descendant of the prophet.
You said during the height of the agitation over the Vietnam War that it was the great religious issue. What made the Vietnam War a religious issue?
Of course it's a religious issue. What does God demand of us primarily? Justice and compassion. What does he condemn above all? Murder. Killing innocent people. How can I pray when I have on my conscience the awareness that I am co-responsible for the death of innocent people in Vietnam? In a free society, some are guilty, all are responsible.
At this time, 1 year ago, I was covering a trial of priests and nuns, the Berrigan trial in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Prospective jurors, one after another, when being questioned by the judge and lawyers, said they thought it was wrong for clergymen to be involved in politics, that their job is to administer to spiritual needs. Well, why don't you stick to spiritual needs?
That's a very good statement. In fact, it's such a good statement that if the prophets were alive, they would be already sent to jail by these jurors, because the prophets mixed into social, political issues. And frankly, I would say that God seems to be an unreligious person, because if you read the words of God in the Bible, he always mixes in politics and in social issues.
But that is the wonder of it, the torment that man has, the problem-solving machine that he is. That, you think, is, I detect, is the essence of living a human life.
Yes, you see, and that is true. No, but you see, one of the great sins of contemporary education is to give the impression you can solve all problems, or there are no problems. Actually, the greatness of man is that he faces problems. I would judge a person by how many deep problems he's concerned with.
But is not the quest of religion, though, to give one a sense of inner peace?
Now, you have to understand the meaning of inner peace. Let me give you first an example of a person who has no problems. Let me give you a dramatic, fictitious picture. Here stands a man, and I'll tell you this is a man who has no problems. Do you know why? He's an idiot. Because a man has problems. And the more complicated, the richer he is, the deeper are his problems. This is our distinction: to have problems, to face problems. Life is a challenge, not just a satisfaction. And the calamity of our time is to reduce life to pleasure only. I'm not against pleasure, but the greatness of life is experience and facing a challenge rather than just having satisfaction. I would be frightened if I were to be ruled by a person who is satisfied, who has the answers to everything. In a very deep sense, religion has two things. First of all, it's an answer to the ultimate problems of human existence. And it also has another side. It is a challenge to all answers. It is living in this polarity of these 2 points.
But there are so many religions that say, come to us and you will have no problem. We will solve your problems. Here's the word of God. He will solve your problem. You don't accept that.
No, I don't accept it because it contradicts everything I have learned about life, from experience, from philosophy, from history, and from the Bible. If I look at the Bible, God is full of problems. Imagine, he created man. He created man on his own will, out of his own freedom. And man is a problem to him. Look at the Bible. God is always wrestling with the problem of man. Even God has problems. This is a deep ingredient of existence, problems. And the tragedy of our education today is we are giving such easy solutions. Be complacent, have peace of mind, everything is fine. No, wrestling is the issue. Facing the challenge is the issue.
Would it be a better world if we were all of one religion?
No.
Would there be less strife?
No. As far as I can judge, and I try to judge God's will from history, it seems to be the will of God that there would be more than one religion. I think it's a very marvelous thing to realize. You know, if I were to ask the question whether, the example I think I gave you before, whether the Metropolitan Museum should try to introduce that all paintings should look alike, or I should like to suggest that all human faces should look alike, how would you respond to my proposal?
I would be against it.
I'm glad. We agree.
I think also, though, in your writings, you've indicated that even where one religion has been adopted in the state, there's no evidence that that has brought any happiness or any new high points of religious feeling. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I think it is the will of God that there should be religious pluralism. One of the most important things in life a human being faces is not only to know how to build a machine, but also how to overcome envy. It's an irrational, destructive power in every man. What does the school do about it? The secular school? Nothing. So I'm disappointed. American educational system, on all levels, has proved to be a terrible disappointment. Religious schools, it's a new problem. I only wish I could tell you the religious schools are doing a perfect job. I would say religious schools should deserve support because they are doing partly a good job. They at least teach people some of the great classical ideas of the religious tradition, and we cannot live without religious tradition. Because take away the religious tradition, what is left? You know what is left? Read contemporary literature and give the contemporary literature, the novels, as a source of inspiration for our young people. What will they get? The Psalms, no one reads. You're not allowed to read the Psalms in the school. How can you be human without being able to pray? We need religious education. The problem begins whether religious education is in such a splendid state. It isn't, but a separate problem. I think that aid to religious schools in some form that would not contradict the constitutional regulations would in the long run prove a blessing. The original fear of supporting religious schools was because religion was a tremendous power at that time, a power we were afraid of that would compete with the state, with the idea of equality. By now, religions are so weak in America, there's little to be afraid of religious power. Therefore, I would definitely say aid for religious schools in some form would be a great contribution.
You believe that organized religion is in a weakened condition?
I think so, but we have to put the blame not only on the religious people, on the religious establishment, but also on the people who belong to that establishment, on the members, on the plain people. You see, actually, the role of religion has declined as a result of countless assaults from all directions. So what is the outcome? In the past, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, a parent who had a gifted boy had a great dream. His son should be a rabbi, a minister, a priest. Today, a man who is a gifted boy like him to be a doctor of medicine, a banker, a lawyer. So the gifted boys are being kept away by many people. Blame the people. But the religious leaders are to blame. There is a decline in religious thinking, religious passion, a detachment from the real problems. Let me say to you the following. The central problem in the Bible is not God but man. The Bible is a book about man, rather than man's book about God. And the great problem is how to answer, to respond to the human situation. And somehow, religious leaders have often become petrified in their own traditions and understanding, and couldn't relate to the burning issues of the day.
How is it responding today?
How is it responding today? Not too well. A great many religious leaders have given up faith altogether. They are deluding themselves. As I told you before, self-deception is a major passion in human life. There are a great many people who use the word God and don't believe in it. Let me give you an example. One of the most popular definition of God, common in America today, was developed by a great Protestant theologian. God is the ground of being. So everybody's ready to accept it. Why not? Ground of being causes me.
Heshel.